Exposed, the haunted 911 operations with 7 sinister rules you were never meant to discover. The clock struck midnight in Maple Grove, just another night for Sarah, a weary 32-year-old single mother holding down a late shift as a 911 dispatcher. She sat tucked behind her desk in that dimly lit room, surrounded by flickering screens and the low hum of static. The tragedy of 6 months prior, a fatal car crash that stole her husband, lingered like a thick fog over her heart. Not only was she battling urgent calls and sleepless nights, but now it felt like something monumental was creeping from every shadow. Sarah took a deep breath, attempting to shake off the last remnants of exhaustion. The night had been predictably dull until a frantic call pierced the stillness like icy fingers on her spine. "Help! It's Mrs. Henderson. You have to." The line devolved into an eerie static that coiled around her, reducing her breaths to shallow gasps. The voice dropped, chilling her to the bone. "Don't go outside." The abrupt disconnect left only a buzzing silence, thick with weighty dread. She brushed it off as an old phone glitch, only to be met by a second call. A terrified teenager's voice echoed through the line, warnings about shadows slinking through the corners of houses, dancing unseen, whispering secrets. Sweat formed at her temples, her pulse quickened. It wasn't just her imagination, something was off in Maple Grove tonight. Unease crept alongside her as she fired off details to send units, but the corner of her mind fixated on the whispers swirling around her ears, urging her to listen, to look more closely. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The night dragged on, punctuated by more calls, each one unearthing layers of chilling secrets. The boy at the end of the street who had vanished years ago, a couple whose yard was filled with strange symbols, the ageless librarian who never seemed to age. Each revelation pushed Sarah closer to a maddening edge. She fumbled with her pen, grappling for clarity, only to feel a shadow brush across her heart. An urgent call cut through the air. It was Lily, her precious daughter, her voice a quiver of raw fear. "Mommy, something at the window." Panic exploded within her. Time warped, every second stretched impossibly thin. There wasn't a police team she could dispatch to their front door. She was powerless. Chills raced down her arms, as familiar, tortured whispers recoiled into the recesses of her mind. "You know the rules, Sarah, don't break them." What rules? The palpable threat felt like an encroaching storm, lurking right outside her window, closing in around her. The room darkened, the once familiar surroundings morphed into a lair of suffocating shadows. As the last call reached its climax, Sarah's got twisted around the truth. The whispers screamed so viciously, they held the key to a dark connection that intertwined the entire neighborhood. They were all part of something much larger, more sinister. Dread and urgency surged as more climactic revelations blurred the line between safety and doom for her and Lily. Heart pounding, her thoughts unraveled, desperately trying to stitch together the fragments. What price would they pay for the secrets they had unwittingly stumbled upon? The shadows around her thickened, and as the clock ticked toward a deadly hour, Sarah felt the dark presence press closer. She was not alone, and the threat was creeping. Would she unravel the truth before it was too late? The line crackled with yet another otherworldly voice that resonated hauntingly within her. "You've broken the rules, now you must pay the price." A shadow flitted past the dispatch window, and with it came an overwhelming dread that had only just begun. The line went dead, leaving an eerie silence that wrapped around Sarah like a thick, suffocating blanket. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each throbbing beat echoing the weight of those haunting words. Desperate breaths spilled from her lips. She glanced around the room, but the shifting shadows only deepened. The dim lights barely cut through the darkness, amplifying her terror. Then, the phone rang again, shattering the stillness. It was a different caller, a man this time, his voice gravelly and jagged. "Help me. He gasped, panic clinging to every syllable. They're here. I can see them. You have to. A loud crash erupted from outside, followed by a haunting scream that sliced through the night air. The sound coiled around Sarah's stomach, twisting it painfully. She stood frozen, her fingers hovering above the keyboard as instinct battled logic. People were out there, scared, alone, and she could do nothing but listen. Who is there? She choked out into the phone, desperate for clarity. What do you see? Where are you? But the line went quiet. Seconds felt like hours, and she cursed under her breath, fear wrapping itself tighter around her throat. How many more voices like that would drift through her headset tonight? How many lives were in danger? She turned back to her screens, opening the maps of Maple Grove. The bright dots indicating calls were shifting and multiplying at an alarming rate, a surge of panic coursing through the neighborhood, almost as if it were alive. On one screen, she could see a marker blinking dangerously close to her own home. Lily, she whispered, nerves on edge, the whispers screaming inside her head. Guilt clawed at her with rusty claws. She couldn't stay in this hellhole any longer. Knees shaking, she rose and stepped closer to the door, her eyes darting to the window, but the blackness outside was impenetrable. If she could just reach her daughter, perhaps they could escape. Another call clicked through, the voice a chilling echo. Help. You have to stop them. The rules, you have to stop. Just tell me where you are. Sarah responded sharply, her hands trembling, but the voice on the other end sputtered out, the darkness, it knows, don't break the rules. A garbled scream cut through the static, and then nothing but silence. She nearly dropped the phone. Rules? What rules? The whispers kept circling her mind, warning and taunting. What if she broke them unknowingly? Was she already too late? With a sudden burst of resolve, Sarah turned, racing toward the dispatch room door. She had to protect Lily, nothing mattered more than that. As she swung the door open, a frigid gust rushed past her, and in the split second before she fled, she caught a glimpse of something outside. A form distorted and twisted in the shadows, a face obscured but unmistakably there watching her. Sarah stepped back, breath hitching. It wasn't just her imagination, it was real. Something from those whispered warnings had seeped into her world, and it was coming for her. Lily! She screamed, sprinting through the ornate hall, her heart racing with terror. But before she reached the living room, the lights flickered and went out completely, plunging her into suffocating darkness. Panic gripped her throat, the absence of light worse than any nightmare she could imagine. Mommy? A fragile voice called, shadowed in the darkness, filled with confusion and fear. As the temperature dropped in the room, a whispered voice clawed at her sanity, echoing close to her ear, you were warned you shouldn't have looked. The fear constricted around her chest as she spun to face the sound, breath held tight in her throat, her body on edge. Stay back. She cried, clenching her fists, adrenaline coursing through her. Then a shimmering outline flickered in her peripheral vision. Something unnatural hovered there, its features twisted and warped. She felt it reaching out, spreading an icy embrace that forced her thoughts to slow. The flickering light returned, revealing Lily standing confused and frail next to an ink-black figure that loomed ominously in the doorway. Fear pierced Sarah's heart anew. In this moment of dread, she realized the rules were more than just whispers, they were a countdown to doom that had started the moment she answered that first call. The night was just beginning, and as deep cracks formed in her resolve, she could only hope she wouldn't lose everything by dawn. What had she released? And how much would it cost her? Before she could answer, the figure whispered, "You're too late." A heartbeat echoed in the stillness, a dreadful drum of panic that coursed through Sarah's body. The shadows trembled, the figure remained, an inky specter draped in a shroud of dread. She could barely grasp the reality before her. Lily! She screamed again, her voice cracking, desperation clawing at her throat. Run! Get away! But her daughter stood paralyzed, feet glued to the floor, eyes locked onto the darkness that consumed the room. The black figure spiraled inward, drenching everything in a cloak of dread that felt alive, pulsating with malice. Mommy Lily's voice was small, lost. "No. You need to move." Sarah surged forward, every instinct screaming at her to protect her child. But the air felt thick, as if the very essence of fear pressed down on her, coiling tighter around her chest. Then the room shifted. The furniture didn't just cast shadows, it became grotesque shapes, grotesquely elongated limbs reaching out as if to ensnare them both. Dark fingers ran along the walls like a virus, infecting the atmosphere. Another flicker of light. It barely illuminated the figure, but for just a moment, Sarah caught a glimpse of its face. It twisted and warped, eyes black like hollow voids that swallowed light and hope. She gagged on the sight. Moving with the weight of dread, Sarah grabbed Lily's hand. "We have to go. Now." The front door felt miles away, each step heavy as if weighed down by invisible chains. She pulled Lily closer, feeling her daughter's warmth, the only anchor in the chilling void surrounding them. As they stumbled together toward safety, more whispers slithered through the air, taunting her. "Break the rules and you'll see." The words crowded her mind, amplifying her fear, but she couldn't focus on them now. She had to reach the door. "Mommy, I don't want to go out there," Lily said, voice trembling, eyes darting toward the windows, where the faintest movement loomed just beyond the glass. "I know, baby. But we have to," Sarah urged, her heart racing. "We can't stay here." Another crash echoed, violent and close. Red-hot adrenaline pumped in her veins, forcing her forward at all costs. Just as they neared the door, the room darkened again, collapsing into absolute void. The whisper lingered, "You shouldn't have looked," and then, with a jarring crash, the door burst open. Night spilled in like a flood of noise and shadows, two figures stepped through the threshold. Sarah's breath left her lungs. "Leave them alone." A voice thundered from the shadows, urgent and fierce. It lunged forward. A figure that looked familiar but also monstrous, swirled and warped under the flickering lights. "I'm here to help," it shouted, but fear seized Sarah again. Was this another deception, another predator? The specter at the door hesitated, shifting its focus between Sarah and its comrade, its features momentarily softened by confusion. This was her moment. "Get away from us!" Sarah screamed, pushing Lily behind her and clutching a nearby lamp, her only weapon against the abyss. She faced the first presence, trembling, resolve boiling deep within. But before she could act, the figure twisted its head unnaturally, as if assessing the disarray of the room, the chaos swirling around them. "You've already broken the first rule," it hissed, revealing teeth that were more needle than fang. No. Sarah shook her head violently, clutching the base of the lamp harder. "What do you mean? I haven't done anything. Just tell me what I need to do." "You looked," the figure hissed, a grin spreading wide across its distorted face. "And now it's too late." Sarah's heart plummeted. What had she done? The darkness thickened, spilling into the corners of the room like shadows seeking refuge. In an instant, the walls trembled. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, clutching her mother's leg. Sarah's thoughts raced. Time was running out. "I'm going to get you out of here," she whispered fiercely, her breath catching in stubborn defiance. No matter what. Yet as she turned back towards the door, the air crackled with a sense of unavoidable doom. The ominous whispers encircled her. Once more, tightening like a noose. "Mommy," Lily's voice trembled again, pulling Sarah back from the precipice of fear. "What are the rules?" With a deep inhale of dread, Sarah prepared to face whatever horror awaited them, a new realization dawning. Perhaps to survive, she'd have to confront the very nightmare she had unleashed. And she had no clue what rule had been broken, but whatever it was coming to claim them now. Would they outrun the darkness, or would it consume them whole? In that heart-stopping moment, she realized, the real nightmare was only beginning. The shadows rippled like a living thing, its tendrils reaching for them as if seeking to drag them down into its cold depths. Panic gripped Sarah's heart with a vice-like closeness. "Lily, we need to stay together," she cried, feeling the little girl's hand slip from her grasp momentarily as fear kept pulling them apart. "Mommy!" Lily yelled, her voice cracking like the fragile glass of their shattered sanctuary. The distorted figure at the door took a step closer, an unsettling smile stretching across its featureless face. It felt wrong, an invitation wrapped in malice. "Run!" Sarah shouted again, piercing through the oppressive silence that thickened like smoke. She could barely see now, the darkness had a weight, smothering her senses. But instinct kicked in. She grabbed Lily's hand with fierce determination. With the lamp barely illuminating their path, they moved, pressing through the thick air and the shifting shadows that seemed to pulse with malicious energy. Behind her, a guttural laugh echoed, palpable and sickening. "The rules you have to understand," the rules. That whisper slithered through her mind, wrapping around her thoughts, stagnating her will. What rules? The question spiraled within her like a tornado, everything around her a blur of confusion and terror. She pulled Lily closer still, squeezing as they propelled towards the door. Just as they surged into the hallway, the tremors rippled through the floor beneath their feet. It felt like the house itself was alive, almost playful in its cruelty. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then died. "Mommy, I can't see," Lily wailed, panic rampant in her small voice as they stumbled in darkness. "Just hold on to my arm, baby. We'll find the way." Blindly, they moved forward, the silence now broken only by Lily's whimpers and Sarah's desperate breaths. The oppressive pressure had shifted, it wasn't just darkness anymore. It was the weight of expectation, of rules hanging over them like a guillotine. Something terrible was looming just out of sight. "Mommy!" Lily gasped, choking on fear. "What do we do?" Another crash echoed nearby, echoing off the walls like an ominous heartbeat. The shadows condensed even tighter as a distinct rustling noise began to rise from the corners, as if secrets were clawing their way to freedom. "Please, hold tight." Sarah felt a wild burst of courage race through her, and she pressed on, determined to break free. But just as hope flickered, the world shifted. A cold breath rushed past her ear, chilling Sarah to the bone. "You shouldn't have looked," it hissed, the breath heavy with foulness. It was right there, close enough to touch. She could feel the malice drape over her like a shroud. "Mommy, I'm so scared." Lily's voice trembled as they both felt the fear descend like a thick fog, tightening its grip. "I know, baby, I know. Just keep moving." Sarah willed them onward, the dread clawing at her thoughts, dragging memories of a life before this horror, a life where fear was an afterthought, not a constant companion. The hallway twisted, warping the floor beneath her feet, pulling at her balance. "We have to break through." Her voice was thick with urgency as they charged towards the end of the corridor. Every step felt like a betrayal to the forgotten rules that whispered in the dark. Each whispered promise twisted into threats. The figures behind them surged forward, doubt feeding their strength. Break the rules, break the rules." The chorus of voices surrounded them, sinister and mocking. Then, as they neared a window, a sudden flash broke the gloom. The glass pulsed with an eerie light, illuminating the nightmare momentarily. Outside, distorted images of the world swirled and whirled, bending reality. She could see other faces peering into the chaos, their eyes black and hollow. "Break it," one of them hissed, pointing at the window, as if that was the key to escaping the nightmare. "Mommy, don't!" Lily screamed, her voice sliced through the air like glass. In that breathless moment, Sarah stared at the window, a choice loomed larger than life. The rules echoed in her mind, taunting her. She swallowed hard, the complexity of fleeing versus surrender weighing on her. Could breaking the glass unleash something worse, or was it the only chance to escape the horror? Confusion and terror coalesced, and in that fleeting instant, Sarah was faced with the most horrific question of all: what price was she willing to pay for her daughter's safety? with the shadows breathing down their necks, she tore her gaze from the sinister illusions outside. "We can still get out," she shouted, her voice ringing louder in defiance, but deep down, she wondered if the real fear was already inside, lining their veins with certainty. And as they stood there, hearts racing, the looming darkness made its move. How far would they go to find the light? A knife edge of fear cut through her thoughts, and in that moment, she knew breaking a rule was inevitable. They stumbled back from the window, dread coating their skin like a layer of frost. The shadows surged, eager to fill the space they had once occupied. A faint rustling rose from behind the walls, a sinister whisper crescendoing, pressing against their ears. Sarah's heart raced with urgency as she took another step, a heartbeat away from certainty. "Mommy, I want to go home." Lily's voice trembled, peppering Sarah's thoughts with hopelessness. How could she explain that home felt far away, lost to darkness? "Hold on tight." A primal instinct drove Sarah forward, though the very air seemed to conspire against them, thick as syrup. The hallway twisted further, warping in ways Sarah could scarcely comprehend. She recalled tales of impossible spaces, where distance stretched and shrank at will, and a cold fear kissed her spine. With each footfall, the laughter behind them grew louder. It crawled under her skin, prickly and invasive, a reminder that escape wasn't simply an option, it was her only lifeline. She turned to Lily, her little face a storm of confusion and terror. "We have to find the stairs. We can make it." But as they pushed ahead, dark shapes clawed at their ankles, slithering through the shadows trying to leash them. Sarah willed herself to fight through the pull of despair, desperately needing to believe there was still strength in her legs. "Mommy!" Lily screamed as she stumbled, the shadows closing in, reminding them that safety clung to them like a distant memory. "Keep going. Just a little longer," Sarah shouted, firing rockets of hope into the void. Suddenly, an unsettling silence enveloped them, pressing down like a weight. The laughter stopped. "Do you think they'll save you?" A voice floated in from the silence, smooth and dulcet, laden with menace. It felt like a hand curling around Sarah's throat. Who are you?" she stammered, squinting into the abyss. The absence of sound only sharpened the approaching dread. "Where do you think you're going? You haven't played the game yet." The voice was smooth, but the laughter beneath it made her skin crawl. "You need to understand the rules." "What rules?" Sarah's voice was a whisper, as if saying it aloud would summon something worse from the dark. Just then, the air shifted, sending a chilling breeze that felt alive, a teasing caress that swept through them like the kiss of death. The shadows enveloped them completely, plunging their world into a void. She grasped for the light, for anything tangible, and found only her daughter's trembling hand. With a determined resolve, Sarah shouted back, "We're not playing your game." Her voice rang out against the dark, defiance twisting into steely hope. "Every choice has consequences," the voice crooned, now echoing from all sides, its tone dripping with false sweetness. "What will you sacrifice for the sake of your child?" Suddenly, the floor trembled beneath them, shifting and splintering as if the house were some monstrous beast twisting its insides. Lily's fingers slipped from Sarah's grasp, a panic swell erupting between them. "Mommy! No!" Time warped as Sarah lunged forward, desperate. But before she could reach Lily, a thick wall of shadows pressed between them, a dark barrier pulsing with the weight of unfathomable fears. "Make your choice." The voices hissed, omnipresent and hungry. "If you want her back, you'll have to play." "Lily!" Sarah shouted, her heart pounding against her ribcage. She could barely see her daughter now. The darkness threatened to consume them both. The shadows danced exuberantly, eager for an answer. A wild thought raced through her mind, every possibility coiled tightly. How far would you go to save her? The inhuman voices chuckled, swirling together in a din dripping with malice. As agony swelled within her, an infinitesimal thought sparked to life. Would she break the rules? Would she risk everything for that glimmer of hope? The question hung, suspended in the air, electrifying the moment. Then, a sharper voice called through the chaos, cutting through false light and promises, "Tell me you remember, tell me you recall the ultimate cost." Time stretched further, warping into a breathless whisper. What would she do to escape? What would she sacrifice for Lily's future? With darkness clutching at her throat, Sarah's heart slammed against despair, begging her to make a choice. And as the shadows closed in, she understood that the true horror was just beginning. How long could they last against a darkness that knew their deepest fears? Sarah's mind sputtered like an old engine, churning through panic and desperate determination. She spotted a slight shimmer beyond the encroaching darkness, a glimmer of hope faintly reflecting off something solid. Could it be a door to freedom? She had to find it. "Lily!" she called, heart racing. "I'm coming. Just hold on." The shadows hissed, discordant laughter ringing like a death knell, but Sarah couldn't let them drown out her daughter's cries. She mustered every ounce of strength, fists clenched, shoulders squared against the unseen terror. Forcing her legs to move, she surged forward, pushing through the crushing darkness that pressed against her like an immense weight. Each step felt alien, like she was moving through thick water. She stumbled, the shadows clawing at her back, wispy tendrils entwining around her ankles, pulling her deeper into their grasp. The bitter chill seeped into her bones, a reminder that time was running out. Then she saw it, a faint outline, a doorframe just ahead. Hope flared momentarily. Sarah stretched her hand toward it, reaching for something tangible. But the darkness thickened, eager to snuff the flicker of her hope. "No. You can't take her. You can't take her." The sweet voice drifted back, slithering through the buzzing dread. "Oh, my dear. You misunderstand. She's already ours. You must understand, this game is meant to show you what you truly desire." "No!" Sarah shouted, anger igniting something fierce within her. "I want to let you take her." "Then how far will you go?" The voice teased, echoing through the twisted halls like a haunting melody. "This place is a reflection of you, your choices, your fears. What will you offer to claim your child?" A low rumble reverberated through the floor, startling Sarah. It felt alive, a pulse connected to the shadows that saturated the air. She glanced over her shoulder. The horrors were still there, lurking, waiting. "Mommy!" The soft voice of Lily shot like an arrow into her heart, dragging her back to reality. The darkness didn't just wish to claim them, it thrived on their doubt. Sarah's breath quickened. "You think you can break me, but you don't know who I am," she screamed, a desperate counterpoint to the whispers. "I'll do anything. I'll." Her stomach twisted at the words. She had no idea what she was inviting. "Anything." The laughter returned, rich and malevolent, echoing off the cracked walls. "Then begin the sacrifice, sweet Sarah. You can save her, but the price will be steep." The shadows slid lower, crawling toward her, the air crackling with their hungry anticipation. As tendrils brushed against her skin, she felt electrical pulses of something ancient and sinister. Every ghastly touch was a reminder of the depths of her fear, but amidst the dread, a spark of defiance ignited. "Bring it on!" Sarah yelled. "Whatever game you want to play, I'm ready." The darkness froze, the laughter ceased abruptly. A heartbeat stretched into eternity, thick as fog, before the voice returned, chilling and sweet. "Very well. Let the game begin." A tremor rippled through the air, reverberating deep into her bones. The walls shifted subtly, spiraling away like a blooming flower revealing dark petals within. And then, suddenly, a gateway appeared, a gaping maw of shadows that pulsed and glowed, beckoning them in a way that felt all too familiar. "Mommy?" Lily's voice trembled, confusion painting her words. "Stay close," Sarah instructed as she felt the shadows swirling around her, chilling fingers seeking access to her very being. The door ahead loomed with promise and threat. She had no idea what lay behind it. With her heart pounding, she took a step forward, aware that crossing the threshold meant embracing the unknown, the start of something unthinkable. What if, the voice whispered, teasing her limits, the next choice you make could shatter everything? Every instinct told her to hesitate. But Lily was still trapped in the dark, lost in a void of terror. With the inevitability of fate, Sarah stepped inside the shadows, resolute despite the tremors of doubt. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fate. What would the darkness demand next? What horror awaited them now? The shadows tightened around Sarah and Lily as they entered the doorway, suffocating any remaining light. In an instant, they were enveloped in a swirling fog, dense and cold like a winter's breath. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a countdown to uncertainty, while the oppressive atmosphere pressed against her, making it hard to breathe. Where are we? Lily whispered, her voice frail, shadows dancing around her small frame. Panic clawed at Sarah, but she forced it down. We're together, that's what matters, she replied, though the tremor in her own voice betrayed her fear. As the fog began to stir, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness, showing the outline of a vast cavern. Sarah squinted, focusing on the scene unfolding before them. Massive walls of rock loomed like ancient sentinels, but it was the center that made her blood run cold, a blackened altar, slick with some dark substance that glimmered ominously. What have you brought us to? Sarah demanded, her voice echoing off the cavern walls, but the shadows whispered back, surrounding her, coiling around her legs like serpents. Choices, dear Sarah, the voice taunted, echoing like a haunting lullaby. This is where your desires manifest and demands rise. With a wave of dread, Sarah turned to Lily, who stood rooted to the spot, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Stay close, Lily. Whatever happens, don't let go of my hand. But as they stepped closer to the altar, an unseen force seemed to pull them apart, the shadows tugging and stretching between them. Sarah could feel the frigid grip of the darkness, longing to separate them. Suddenly, from the depths of the shadows, a figure began to emerge, tall and sinuous, its outline shifting and warping as it approached. Sarah's stomach twisted. It was a ghastly mockery of a human form, its face obscured by dark tendrils swirling like smoke. The very essence of fear coiled around it, feeding off the terror it exuded. Mommy! Lily's voice broke, quivering as her eyes darted between Sarah and the figure. Stay behind me. Sarah commanded, stepping protectively in front of her daughter. The figure raised a hand, a gesture both inviting and threatening. To save her, it crooned, voice like glass shattering in a still room, you must be willing to sacrifice what you hold most dear. What do you mean? Sarah shouted, dread dripping from her words like cold sweat, vision blurring as panic threatened to overtake her. I'll never sacrifice my child. Where's your resolve? The creature hissed, laughter lacing its tone, as shadows around it writhed joyfully, eager for the drama to unfold. If not your daughter, then what? Inside, Sarah felt a tempest of emotions. The stakes of the game pressed hard against her, every choice, a potential weapon. The memories of her own sacrifice rushed back, her dreams, the things she had given up to provide for Lily. If I have to sacrifice myself, she whispered, fists clenching, then I will. Oh, sweet Sarah, the figure mocked, the shadows swirling faster around their legs. There's always a price. The past, the future, what weighs more? A faint glow caught Sarah's eye, a flickering image of her, younger and carefree, laughing without reservations, holding tightly onto a little version of Lily. The joy was pure, but the shadows twisted it into mockery. Sarah felt her heart squeeze, a mix of yearning and dread filling the cavern. Choose wisely, the figure hissed, as the images multiplied, trapping her in a whirlwind of choices, each one a piece of her life. As the darkness began to thrum with dark energy, she glanced back at Lily. I want to lose you, not to this. But to win, you must lose something, it taunted, shadows ever creeping, challenging her resolve. The words settled like a thick fog in the cavern. What would she give up to keep her daughter safe? And if she chose wrong, would she be the one left behind? A breath caught in Sarah's throat. Everything hung in the balance. Choose, Sarah. Choose your fear. The shadows danced as she stood at the precipice of decision, heart racing. Each decision slipped through her fingers like sand, and every moment brought the cavern closer to a spine-chilling climax. The cliff of the choice loomed ahead, dark and daunting. What shadow would she embrace to save Lily? What part of herself would she lose? The darkness surged around them, curling like smoke, hungry for the taste of fear. Choose, Sarah. The figure's voice was a cruel melody woven with shadows, a symphony of despair as it circled closer. The shadows flickered with life, licking at her ankles, whispering secrets she dared not hear. Every heartbeat pounded in her ears as mere moments stretched into an eternity. The air bristled with uncertainty, a thick fog of anxiety that wrapped itself around her throat. She clenched her fists tighter, trying to anchor herself against the rising tide of panic. Focus, Sarah. You can do this, she murmured, though the words felt empty against the impending dread. Lily's small voice broke through, tiny but fierce. Mommy, I don't want to lose you. The girl's eyes shone with unshed tears, a beacon of innocence trapped in this monstrous nightmare. It tore at Sarah's heart, the stark reminder of what they stood to lose. Listen to me, Lily. Whatever I choose, we'll get through this. But inside, her resolve trembled. The pressure of the choice bore down on her, twisting her thoughts into a chaotic mess. Each option felt like a blade, sharp and cutting, as her past danced before her, urging her to remember what she valued most. The figure loomed over them, its laughter shredding the silence. Time's running short, Sarah. What will you abandon? Your happiness? Your memories? Or perhaps your precious daughter? The words unfurled like vines, wrapping around her psyche. Sarah took a breath, feeling her chest constrict. I won't sacrifice my daughter. She shouted, her voice fierce but faltering. A cold wave of certainty washed over her, as if the shadows relished her fear. The altar shifted, revealing a deep chasm, swirling with the same dark substance that coated its surface. Visions flickered within, a life where she had never left her hometown, a life full of laughter and love, the things she had long sacrificed. But at what cost? What lay beneath those layers of happiness, concealed by time and choice? Attachment is a weakness, the figure hissed, a serpent coiling tighter. You must decide. Her life or your liberation. Panic splintered her thoughts. She gritted her teeth, shaking her head violently. I refuse to play your game. I won't lose either of us. Her voice was desperate now, the shadows pressing in, cold fingers caressing her skin. Then silence fell. The air hummed, thick and suffocating, each second dragging from time's eternal grasp. Lily looked up, confusion etched across her young face. Mommy, what are you going to do? That simple question cut deep, a shard of clarity piercing the darkness. Instinctively, Sarah knelt, grasping Lily's shoulders in trembling hands. Just trust me, sweetheart. We'll be okay. I promise, she said fiercely, though doubt danced in her chest. In that moment, a surge of hope broke through. A glimmer of resolve ignited within her. You want a sacrifice? She bellowed, voice echoing off the cavern's walls. You'll have to take me instead. The figure recoiled momentarily, shadows twisting in agitation. Foolish girl. It screeched, lashing its hands, sending ripples through the fog. But before the darkness could tighten its grip, a blinding light erupted from the altar, illuminating the cavern like a star igniting in a black sky. Shadows shrieked, retreating momentarily, revealing more secrets clinging to the edges of the cavern. In that bewildering brightness, Sarah felt the weight of her decision. All her fears, all her hopes, coalesced into that singular moment. But what would this act of defiance demand of them? The shadows screamed, enraged at the disruption, swirling violently. You will pay dearly, the figure warned, its voice a draft of cold water, each word an ominous promise. Tension crackled in the air, the cavern pulsating with an energy that felt primal, alive. Mommy? Lily's voice shook, fear lacing her tone as the brightness dulled. leaving only flickering shadows in its wake. As Sarah stared into the swirling dark, a new horror gnawed at her. The very fabric of the cavern was shifting, and she could feel the eyes of the unknown staring back at her. What happens now? The question wasn't just for her, it echoed in the heart of the labyrinth they stood within. It was not just a choice anymore but an unraveling of their destinies, where every movement tiptoed along razor-thin edges, and the darkness still beckoned, hungry waiting. But this time, Sarah stepped forward, all of her love curdled into a single idea. The next choice awaited them both, and the shadows would not rest until they claimed their offerings. What awaited them in the depths of the night? The shadows recoiled, swirling like angry moths beset by a sudden wind. Sarah's heart quickened, pounding hard against her ribs. She could feel the darkness tightening around them, but her defiance, that flicker of light, sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Stay close, Lily," she urged, grabbing her daughter's tiny hand. It felt fragile, like glass in her grip, and panic threatened to bubble up again. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the chasm before them pulsed with a dreadful invitation. The figure loomed, its dark form undulating like an oil spill. "Your choice will cost you dearly," it hissed, its voice dripping with malevolence, weaving through the air like thick smoke. As the shadows coiled tighter, Sarah dug her nails into her palm, anchoring her fear. "What have you done to our lives? What do you want?" she screamed, desperation coloring her words. The figure laughed, a low, echoing sound full of menace. "Your ignorance is a delight. But every sacrifice requires a payment." It gestured towards the chasm, revealing swirling visions within distorted memories of her life, her mother, the love she had lost, the dreams she had sacrificed. "No," Sarah gasped, stepping back, heart racing. The images were too painful, striking at the core of her being. Her breath hitched as a cold chill washed over her skin. "I want to let you take those away from me. Then watch as they unravel before your eyes," the figure taunted, and with a wave of its hand, the chasm erupted with whirlpools of black fog, pulling at threads of her memories. Shapes and faces morphed, twisted by the shadows. The laughter of her mother turned to screams. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice quivered beside her, tearing at Sarah's heart. "Don't look," Sarah gasped, shielding Lily's eyes. But curiosity smoldered in the air like smoke, and she could feel the chill seeping deeper. The figure stepped closer, its cold breath brushing against their skin, a layer of dread thickening the air. "Your heart holds too much for this realm," it crooned softly, its voice shifting into something almost seductive. "But the price is so simple. Give me what I desire, and you may just keep your precious child." Sarah's thoughts jumbled. What do you want? She needed to understand, to take control of this nightmarish scenario. "Whatever it is, I'll find a way." A twisted smile spread across the figure's face, baring too many teeth like a predator. "Ah, but it's not just one thing, Sarah. Remember what you said in your darkest moments, the guilt, the regret. Those emotions feed me." Emboldened by her love for Lily, she steeled herself. "You think I'll give in to despair? I'll destroy you first. You may feed on my past, but you won't have my future." The shadows hissed and recoiled, agitation lacing their movements. Suddenly, Sarah felt a rush of warmth as the light flared briefly, illuminating the cavern with flickers of hope. She nearly stumbled, but kept steady, searching for strength. In that fleeting brightness, Sarah caught a glimpse of a distant door at the far end of the cavern, half hidden by shadows. "That's our way out. We can escape." She pulled Lily, her heart racing faster than ever, but the darkness pulsed around them, the figure's laughter mocking. "You'll never leave. You have to choose your sacrifice, and it won't let you go without a price." Desperation gripped Sarah, her thoughts raced. Could they really escape? Was there a way to fool the shadows? Panic surged in her chest again, threatening to consume her. But love surged with it like a lightning bolt striking in the midst of a storm. "Do you promise? If we make it to that door, will we be free? Mommy?" Lily whimpered, her grip tight. For you, I'll fight. Sarah met the figure's gaze, determination igniting a fire within her. As they took a step forward, the chasm roared, shadows leaping from its depths like wild animals, clawing at their ankles. You will pay. It thundered, darkness swirling, eyeing them hungrily, but Sarah forged ahead. Not tonight. Not ever. The figure shrieked, the air vibrating with its fury, as they sprinted towards the door. But would the darkness allow their escape? As they neared the threshold, the ground quaked beneath them. What would happen if they reached the door? Would they step into safety, or plunge deeper into the abyss? Sarah's heart pounded like a wild drum as she and Lily raced toward the door. The shadows shrieked angrily behind them, a cacophony of rage and despair that echoed through the cavern. The weight of the darkness pressed heavily, a grasping hand trying to pull them back. Just a little farther, she thought, feeling the flicker of hope urging her forward. Mommy, I'm scared. Lily cried, her small voice trembling, but Sarah gritted her teeth and held tight to her daughter's hand, feeling the warmth that radiated from her. That warmth was a lifeline strong enough to pierce through the cold dread chasing them. We're going to make it. Sarah shouted, determination at her back, pushing away the creeping thoughts that whispered they might fail. They simplified everything into one central truth: they were together. As they bore down on the door, the shadowy figure roared, its voice cascading like thunder. You think you can escape? Yes. Sarah screamed back defiantly. We will escape. You don't own us. With every ounce of desperation, they collided into the door, slamming it open just as the shadows loomed threateningly behind them. Gritting her teeth, Sarah felt the force of their anger swirl all around, but at that moment, as the cavern started to tremble, she squeezed Lily's hand tighter. On 3. She yelled, her voice cutting through the rumblings. 1. 2. 3. They surged through the threshold together, plunging deeply into a blinding light that swallowed them whole. All at once, they emerged into a field, sunlight pouring down like a warm embrace, casting the horrors behind them into oblivion. Gasping for breath, Sarah looked around. They stood near a twisted tree under an azure sky, where the sounds of the world gently teased her ears: birds chirping, a distant brook gurgling. It felt so real, the type of reality that seemed to wipe the nightmare clean from her mind. Did we do it? Lily asked, looking up at her mother with wide, hopeful eyes. Sarah knelt, cupping Lily's face between her hands. I think so, baby. I think we made it. For a moment, relief flooded Sarah's heart, but then an unsettling sensation crept back in. But what about the darkness? What if it follows us? A sweet laugh erupted from Lily, and it softened the jagged edges of Sarah's worries. It can't. We're free. But as the sunlight shone brightly, a slight chill brushed past them, a promise that perhaps the shadows would always wait just beyond the edge, the memories lingering, unfinished. Shadows don't disappear easily, they evolve. With renewed determination, Sarah tucked the thought away. They would face whatever came next together, fortified by love, not fear. Together, they took their first steps into their new freedom, each movement a testament, every breath, a newfound promise. Hand in hand, mother and daughter walked into the unknown, leaving the whispers of the past behind. As they wandered forward, Sarah finally felt the shadows lifting. Nothing would come between them again, and as they disappeared into the horizon, the echoes of the cavern faded, leaving behind a whisper soft as a ghost. You have broken the rules. You will pay the price in time. A twist of fate, a shadow never far, but for now, they were free. As the camera pulled back, revealing their figures in the distance, a sense of closure hung in the air. They had conquered the darkness, united against all odds. But the question remained: what sacrifices would shadow them in the future? This story concludes here, but the echoes of the past remind us always to heed the warnings of the shadows. If you loved this gripping ending, you need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive story. It's just around the corner. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm, showing your support and helping us reach more fans like you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about Sarah and Lily's journey. Your feedback matters so much. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who crave compelling tales as much as you do. Show your love for the channel now.